Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brothers and sisters in Islam. Yet again, we are here to motivate ourselves towards adhkar and the remembrance of Allah. And the next hadith we'll be discussing about today is the hadith of Abu Hurairah, narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, hadithun muttafaqun alayh. A very famous hadith about the 7 people that will be under Allah's shade. Abu Hurairah narrates, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سبعة يظلهم الله في ظله يوم لا ظل إلا ظله, that there are 7 groups of people, 7 persons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant shade to on the day of judgment. And some scholars say this shade is from the shade of Allah's throne, that Allah will put them under the shade when the sun is hot and everybody Yawm al-Qiyamah is trying to run and get some place for respite. The first of these people, the Prophet mentioned Imamun Adilun or Imamun Adilun. He says, a just leader. وَشَابٌ نَشَأَ فِي عِبَادَةِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, and a young person who grew up in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knowing about his deen and learning about his deen. Then number 3 said, وَرَجُلٌ قَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ بِالْمَسَاجِدِ, a person whose heart is inclined and attached to the masjid, to the mosque. Every time he knows it's time for prayer, he's always going to pray, he's always there on time. That person is counted among those. Number 4, he says, وَرَجُلَانِ تَحَابَّا فِي اللَّهِ اجْتَمَعَا عَلَيْهِ وَتَفَرَّقَا عَلَيْهِ, 2 people who love themselves for Allah's sake. Whenever they come together, it's for Allah's sake. Whenever they separate, it's for Allah's sake. That's number 4. Number 5, he says, وَرَجُلٌ دَعَتْهُ امْرَأَةٌ ذَاتُ مَنْصَبٍ وَجَمَالٍ, that a man that is called into illegal, haram activity sexually by a lady, beautiful lady, lady that has lots of status, influential lady, somebody that is irresistible, definitely. But this person resisted this for Allah's sake and said, Inni akhafullah, I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I won't fall for this. And then that's number 5. Number 6 is رَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ بِصَدَقَةٍ فَأَخْفَاهَا حَتَّى لَا تَعْلَمُ شِمَالُهُ مَا تُنْفِقُ يَمِينُهُ, is a man who gives out charity with so much secrecy for Allah's sake and to abstain from show off, to the extent it describes it in a metaphor, a kind of analogy, that he gives this charity in such a way that the left hand gives something the right hand doesn't know, and when the right hand gives something the left hand doesn't know. And then the last one is of our concern today. In the hadith, it says, وَرَجُلٌ ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ خَالِيًا فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ, a man who remembers Allah secretly, alone, by himself, thinking about Allah, pondering about Allah, and his eyes filled with tears. You know, the scholars have stated that dhikr is not only in the tongue. The dhikr of the tongue is to mention Allah's name. The dhikr of the eyes is to shed tears for Allah's sake. The dhikr of the ears is to listen to Allah's words. The dhikr of the heart is to be patient, is to be able to humble himself for Allah and accept. The dhikr of the soul is to fear Allah and also to love Allah. You know, so every part of the body, the dhikr of the body is to be obedient to Allah and to do what the body parts are supposed to do for Allah's sake. So adhkar goes beyond just mentioning Allah's name and saying the dhikr. The person who cries for Allah's sake, the person who thinks about Allah and shed tears for Allah's sake, that is the person we are talking about today. And Al-Qurtubi said that the crying depends on the situation. When you come to the characteristic of Allah that are Awsaful Jalal, the attributes of Allah or the names of Allah that talk about Allah's might, Allah's greatness, then the person shed tears out of fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then if it talks about you listening to verses about Allah's Awsaful Jamal, the attributes of Allah that describes Allah's pleasing nature, Allah's beauty, Allah's love, Allah's mercy, and this person shed tears just because he wants to meet Allah, because he's attracted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that regard. So the tears could be for any of those reasons. And this hadith mentions someone who's in the masjid, and the scholars have agreed that this attraction to the masjid is specific to men, because we know the women, the best salah for them is in their homes. I just had to make that clear. And then the crying has to be with tears. It doesn't have to be shouting. So first of all, the crying is best to be in secret. That is the first thing. You can cry if people are around, if it's genuine, that's okay. But you get more reward when you cry in secret, when no one is seeing you. Imam Shafi'i came to the masjid once and saw a man who was touched and crying. And he told the man, if you had done this when you are by yourself secretly, it would have been better for you. So it doesn't mean you won't have a reward crying where other people are, but it is best if you can do it when you are by yourself. Anything that has to do with yelling, oh, oh, because you are touched by Allah, oh, or people start hitting themselves, some will jump on the floor, some will faint because they are listening to Quran or because they are touched by, this is not part of the Sunnah. This is not part of the Sunnah. These are things that some sects of people have innovated into the deen, and we don't do those. Those are not counted as part of those who remember Allah and cry. And Qatada has narrated this in the tafsir of the verse that is in Surah Zumar, verse 23, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تَقْشَعِرُ مِنْهُ جُلُودُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ. He says the skins, the bodies of those who fear their Lord, they shiver from the verses of Allah. Is that okay? And he says, ثُمَّ تَلِينُ جُلُودُهُمْ وَقُلُوبُهُمْ إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Then their hearts are touched and softened, and their bodies are softened. Their bodies are tranquiled. They are in tranquility for the remembrance of Allah. Allah did not say their hearts are lost in faint. They faint or they lose their minds out of dhikrillah. In fact, their minds are put together. Their minds are composed. They are more, composed and more focused from dhikrillah and pondering over the meanings of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala count us among those who remember Him and those who benefit from His remembrance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.